Happy Monday, guys. Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. That is Ari. I'm Korea. It's Monday, November 11th, obviously, Veterans Day. So we like to wish all of our veterans there thank you for all of your service and for protecting all of the Americans here on America First. But first, obviously, we're going to do a quick recap of the entire weekend from how we did. First, Friday and Saturday for me, pretty, I'll call it a decent weekend. First with Iowa and UCLA, that was a tough under. It was the grossest over. Like I said, the lowest total on the day. I thought it could go over. It had a pretty good shot, but two turnovers in the red zone from Iowa, and that's pretty much the story there. Obviously, it just went under, but had plenty of chances to go over. So, not beating myself too much over that. And then South Carolina Vandy, that was a great winner there. Pretty boring game. I knew it was going to be very run heavy. Both teams were pretty much relying on that, and then the defense has played very well as well. Obviously, with South Carolina's defense, obviously getting the win on the road, limiting Pavia on the ground, only letting them get 7 points. I knew this game was going to be pretty ugly, pretty boring, and obviously the final score 28-7 indicated that. So pretty slow, boring game. That's kind of what I was looking for there. And then Oregon team total, it was. It was a tough one, but at the same time, the way the game was, it was it's a lot slower of a game. So I didn't know if Oregon was going to really rack up a total or not, and they didn't. So that was a tough one there. It was just more of a very methodical game. Oregon was driving, but they weren't really having the big explosive plays to really get their offense going. They were just holding that lead, and shout out to Maryland for making it a little bit more interesting, but it was all Oregon all day. So that was a tough one there. I thought I could get cute with just taking the team total, but obviously that was just a tough beat there. And then obviously my favorite bet of the weekend, I said the hammer play obviously hit. So that's where obviously all the smiles are coming from. Penn State minus the 13.5. I was obviously considering laddering this, and I did all the way up to 21, and obviously that hit as well. So I did Penn State minus 13.5, Penn State minus 17, Penn State minus 21. All three of those hit. It was like I was said, I was going to be a pretty much defensive battle, in terms of offensively for UW. Couldn't get anything going. Rogers, two interceptions. They benched him. They brought in the backup. Just ugly game for UW. That's kind of what I was expecting. Penn State, as I said, after they play Ohio State, they always, like to rack up the points and beat down on their opponents. That's exactly what they did. So Penn State obviously still a good school. They ran up the score. Obviously, they were doing just enough on the ground, obviously, and in the air, with Aller, against that secondary. So shout out to them. Obviously, Washington secondary, one of the best in the nation. So, I'll definitely take a 2-2 weekend. Obviously, like I said, the hammer play was the Penn State minus 13.5 spread. And obviously I laddered that up all the way to 21 and it hit. So I'm definitely satisfied there. So I'll gladly take that on the weekend. Ari, how'd you do on Saturday?
Yeah, not the best Saturday for me, 1-2. But the one win was, as you call it, BTA with Alabama over at LSU. Jaden Milroe looked like Lamar Jackson when he has his big rushing games out there. So that was a sweat-free win. But then the other two were pretty tough. I mean, Miami. I mean, if they're gonna not win the first half, I'm glad that they lost the first game outright. I mean, they finally. It seemed like every week they said something go their way, like every single game, and it finally doesn't happen. And um, you know, obviously they're still 9-1 or whatever. They only have one loss, so they'll still be fine overall. But just a tough game for them out. Like they had the one big play like early in the first quarter that I think tied the game at 7-7, and then they kicked a field goal up 10-7. After that, the offense just kind of went in hibernation. It seemed like so. Obviously, credit to Georgia Tech. They had the plan, and they had everyone healthy to be able to run the ball and be able to kind of control the clock for most of the game. And then Cam Ward tried to come back late and got sacked and fumbled sacked from behind and fumbled. So that was the game there. And Cincinnati was just really bad. I mean, Sorsby. I mean, I haven't watched every game. I've watched some of their games, and Sorsby's been good for most of the season. But that one, he was like a true freshman, who did not know what he was doing. Like his awareness and some of the throws he made was just really, really bad. So I'll take that one, on the chin as a bad play. Miami first half was a bad play, but fortunately, Alabama at least somewhat salvaged Saturday for me, overall.
Yeah, obviously, mentioned Bama, BTA definitely. I even mentioned LSU. They can't really stop dual threat quarterbacks. And well, we saw Milroe become a running back on Saturday, obviously, with just how much he was just shredding through that LSU defense. That was pretty much their plan of attack: get Jalen Milroe running on the ground, and we'll see how far he can go. And obviously, he had himself a day, 4 TDs on the ground. That was pretty much their plan. Miami first half, that was a tough loss for you. With just you mentioned, if you wanted if the first half sold you, you didn't want the full game, and obviously, uh, Georgia Tech got the outright win. Obviously, a big upset of the day. So shout out Georgia Tech. That was a great game. Payne's King. The dual threat. We didn't see much dual threat. It was more running than throwing. But if you can't stop the run, how are you gonna? I mean, that's all you need to do. Just stop the run. You can't do that. So that was a tough one for you as well. And then Cincinnati. Wow, Sorsby just absolutely could not do anything against one of the worst secondaries that I've seen in West Virginia. They turned over the ball, pick six, fumble, just absolute terrible day for Sorsby. Just hopefully refresh that, get that out of the memory, and hopefully come back next Saturday ready to go. So that was a tough one for you. I don't even want to get into Sunday, Ari. I really don't. But Sunday, wow, wow, just wow. I don't even know what to say, Ari. I don't even know where to start. Like, do I start with the Chicago Band Bears? Do I start with the fact that Patrick Mahomes left to sell my bets, or do I start with the fact that Joe Flacco should be sitting at home watching football instead of playing football? I mean, that's pretty much how Sunday went. Bears stink. Joe Flacco should be going. Joe Flacco should not be throwing picks. He should be. Honestly, Joe Flacco should be almost in a retirement home for God's sakes. And then the Broncos Chiefs. It was looking good, and then Mahomes said, "Oh, we're gonna do a last-second touchdown just to." Ari, how'd you do yesterday?
Yeah, it was a good day for me. 2-0. The Bucks should have won outright. They're up 20 to. They're up. What was it, 3 or 6 with the ball with like 7 minutes left? Then they just have a terrible 3-and-out after that's what yeah it was after Jake Moody missed the third field goal. They got the ball back with good field position with the lead with like 7 minutes left or 8 minutes left, something like that. And then they go 3-and-out, and what after that was the Kittle touchdown, I think after that. But anyways, they're up by 4. Yeah, they're up by 4. But still pretty sweat free in terms of the spread for the Bucks overall. And then the Falcons Saints. I mean, I'm trying to think if Koo made the 3 field goals. I don't think it would have made a difference really. Obviously that helped. Obviously that helped the bet overall, but or wait, I guess it was 37. I guess it did make a difference because it went under by 9 points. I mean, maybe it would, but I guess that did help. But still, one of those ugly divisional games. I expected. Didn't expect the Saints to win the game outright, but when your field goal kicker misses 3 field goals, it's usually tough to win unless you're the Niners, I guess. But yeah, still 2-0 day for me, which was needed after Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, Sundays are becoming a lot more of a difficult decision for me. So I'm going to go into the lab this week, figure out if I really want to give out anything for Sunday, especially after last week. But obviously, congratulations to you. Obviously, the Bucks honestly could have won that game, but obviously, Jake Moody decided to be a kicker in the fourth quarter after missing those other field goals. And then obviously the Falcons Saints ugly game. You mentioned Koo missed 3 field goals. Maybe this Saints team around their special teams coach, maybe special teams coordinator now, head coach, interim head coach now. Maybe they can get something going. Maybe it was kind of the reason, obviously. Koo missed 3 field goals, but at the same time, that was an under for you. So obviously the under hit. So obviously 2-0 day for you. So congratulations to you, obviously, after a tough Saturday for you. But obviously moving on here, we got, but I got 2 plays for you, obviously on the hardwood where I like to be for basketball here, college basketball. First, we're going to one of the more storyline games of the day here, taking McNeese here plus the 18.5. Obviously on the road here at Alabama. Obviously, everyone knows this is Will Wade's return to the SEC, his first game against an SEC opponent since obviously the whole scandal at LSU with him leaving and obviously having a sour taste in the mouths of all the LSU fans and obviously all the staff as well. But now, obviously, he comes back, gets the revenge after really rejuvenating his whole program at McNeese. We've seen this program before, right? We saw them last year, be a complete wagon in the regular season, all the way until they had that buzzsaw Gonzaga in the first round, and that was a tough draw for them. But obviously this year they're 1-1, had a tough loss in their first game against South Dakota State, but they were just out rebounded. They couldn't defend they couldn't defend Osterkloff inside. I watched that game. They just could not out rebound them. But here, I think they keep this one close. Obviously, I think the last time, Alabama, I'm not going to say they loaded up this non-conference. They had to play Arkansas State, I think, they're in their last game. And, Arkansas State is one of my favorites, as I said, outside of the outside the Sun Belt. And they almost won that game. They could have won that game almost. And I think McNeese is going to do the same thing here. I love this McNeese team. They're a very veteran team, as I said, pretty much returned almost all of the guys last year. Will Wade is building something there, right? He's building a program, right? And I think this buzzsaw McNeese team is really going to give Alabama some trouble, especially on the defense. Alabama, we know they are one of the better offensive teams, but obviously on the defensive side, they're a little suspect at times. And I think McNeese State can definitely exploit them with that. Obviously, we know Will Wade's been circling this game, not only just for him, but obviously for his program as well, because, this is a big story for him and his program. I think McNeese State keeps this game interesting. Depending on what the score is at half, I would not be surprised if they might be even live dogs. I'm not even kidding you when I say that. Like, they actually could win this game. Like, I love McNeese in a bounce back. Obviously, they won their second game of the season, but after the bounce back against South Dakota State, I think they keep this game close here. The line has been slowly going down. Obviously, it opened around 19 or 19 and a half. Now it's about 18 and a half. I think people are believing in this McNeese team. I think the revenge story is here, and I'm going to buy into it. So I'm taking McNeese State plus the 18 and a half minus 110. And then we're going to go to the late night here on the island, Ari. Let's go to the island, Ari. We're going to go to the Pacific and Hawaii game on the island here. We're taking the over 142 and a half here, minus 110. Look, I know it's high, and I know Hawaii just played last night, but look, Pacific, they got shooters, right? They got guys who can shoot the ball. They have four double-digit scores here. They just beat and they're, I like to look at recent matchups, and they both, obviously, this is like a challenge kind of thing. So they both played San Jose State, who is there, and they both scored 80 points in that game. Obviously, they were pretty much controlling the boards. And even though, obviously, the one scary thing is that these two defenses, are pretty good, the fact that, these two teams are shooting over almost 50% total. Obviously, I think Pacific is shooting about 40. I think Pacific is shooting about 54% from the field, which is like top 20 in the country right now, which is insane. And you have Hawaii, who's a 45% shooting team, at home. And, the line's going toward Pacific, which I think if I had to lean aside, I do like Pacific. But I think Hawaii is definitely going to make this game interesting on the island here. We know both teams can score, so I'm just backing points here. I think both teams are going to be putting up a lot of points tonight, obviously. For some of you, you might wake up and you see, you look at the score and you'll see, that game went over. And for some of you who want to stay up and watch that game, I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think both teams are going to be really shooting the ball well. Obviously, like I said, Hawaii as well, they have 5 double-digit scores as well. I like to back, offenses that are not, one player centric, just kind of, team heavy, assisting, passing the ball around. And that's pretty much what these two teams are. Pacific, they also, I think, are top, 30 in assists per game, and then Hawaii as well. They like to pass the ball, find the last man open to get a good shot up. So those are my two best bets for tonight's college basketball slate. Going to the island, taking Pacific and Hawaii over 142 and a half, and then going to a pretty personal game for Will Wade, backing McNeese State on the road here, plus 18 and a half against Alabama, number 2 ranked Alabama, of course. So those are my two plays today on the hardwood. Obviously, McNeese State probably about maybe. I'll probably give that a whole unit. Same for Pacific and Hawaii. Like I said, it's still early in the college basketball season. We even got some bigger games tomorrow as well with Kansas and Michigan State and Duke and Kentucky. Obviously, big games tomorrow. So we got plenty of action there. Ari, I know we got Monday Night Football. We got some NBA, of course. Do you like anything on in the slate today? What are you going for?
Yeah, just one NBA play for me today. And we're going with the Nets, who have surprisingly been a lot better than most expected so far this season. They're 4-6, but their last 2 games are losses by 5 to an undefeated Cleveland team, and then they took Boston to overtime, both on the road. So they've actually been a lot more competitive than most expected, and they're facing a completely depleted Pelicans team that's lost 4 in a row. They're without Zion, DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, Herb Jones, and Jordan Hawkins. They are getting Trey Murphy back for his season debut, but it's his debut, so he probably won't be. He probably won't have his usual minutes. And the Pelicans are they lost 4 in a row, and that includes losing by 27 to Orlando, who was without Paolo, their best player, and they lost at home by 18 to Portland, who's to me is the worst team in the NBA. So they're just, I mean, and they're Nets are 1.5, so one might call it short because of that. But I mean, the Nets are on the road, and they're still 4-6. They're not going to get like a ton of respect in the line. They're not going to be a huge favorite to any team. So I don't think the line's weird, despite the Pelicans being really really bad in their 4-game losing streak. So I'm just taking it's a short line 1.5. I'm sticking them on the ML at -125. Um, just kind of fading the Pelicans right now while everyone's banged up besides Brandon Ingram. And the Nets, they were projected to be, bottom, whatever, 2 to 4 team in the NBA heading into the season. And maybe in the end, they'll still end up that way. But at least as of right now, they're at least competitive against really good teams. And so I think against the depleted Pelicans team, they can, take care of business even on the road and, come out with the win.
Yeah, I do love looking at some of these lines. I saw something for college basketball that kind of goes back to your play here. You look at the line, you see why are they favored, but you look at the team right now, you look at the Pelicans, you mentioned, injury depleted, no Zion, no McCollum, just absolutely injured. They've lost their last 4. You mentioned Portland. I mean, I haven't watched that much NBA, but I know Portland is a horrible team this year. There's still questions with Scoot Henderson, whether it's a developing issue or whatever the issue is with him. They just lost by 18 at home, and I do agree. You mentioned the Nets shouldn't really be favored that much throughout the season, but when they are, you got to take them in the right spots. And I think this is a right spot here against the Pelicans team who was injured to high hell. So I do like the Nets here, even though you mentioned Trey Murphy making his season debut today. I'm not going to say it's going to make a huge difference, but I do like the Nets just as slight road favorites here. Just on the ML, obviously the spread -1, so pretty much the same thing there. So I do love your play there. The Nets on the money line here, -125. Going back to my 2, back on the hardwood for college basketball with the Pacific and Hawaii over 142.5, along with McNeese covering the +18.5 on the road at Alabama. You can find all of these plays on our Twitter below, AKP Sports Talk. We'll have both of these cards and this video posted momentarily. That's going to do it for this episode. That's Ari. I'm Korea. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow to preview some more college basketball. Of course, like I said, the 2 biggest games of the day, Kansas and Michigan State, Duke and Kentucky. Those are going to be very exciting tomorrow. We got more college football tomorrow. Yes, Ari, we got some more action tomorrow. I'm very excited. So tune into all of that tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. That's Ari. I'm Korea, and we will see